Good evening. This meeting of the Hopkins School Board is called to order at 7:03 p.m. I'd like to welcome our community members who have joined us here in the boardroom, as well as those who are joining us via the YouTube live stream. Dr. Mary Perry Reed is ill this evening and at home, so unfortunately she is not with us. We'll go around the table and introduce ourselves. We'll go around as board members, and then you'll be able to hear from our fantastic student board representatives during our report section in just a few minutes. So Director Hartland, we'll start with you.
Certainly. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us, either here or at home. I am Director Rachel Hartland. I use she, her pronouns, and I have 3 kids in this Hopkins district, and they are in their 8th, 6th, and 4th grade years. And my spouse and I open enrolled our oldest here when he was in 1st grade, after we considered all of our metro options. And then we moved here shortly thereafter, after we confirmed that Hopkins is our perfect academic and values match. And we live in Minnetonka. I've been there for 7 years now, and this is my 2nd full year on the board.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katie O'Shea Peterson. I'm parent to 6th and 7th grader at North Middle School. And thanks for watching.
Hi, I'm Director Steve Adams, and I'm in my 12th and final year as a school board member. My family moved into the Hopkins School District before open enrollment, so that was not an option for us. And we had two great kids who are now grown adults who attended Hopkins schools all the way from K through 12.
I'm Jen Westmoreland, she, her. I currently serve as chair of the Hopkins School Board. I'm a proud graduate of Hopkins Schools and the parent of a 12-year-old, a 7th grader at West Middle School, who I know is at home cleaning right now.
I'm sure they're watching intently.
Yeah, I think they're watching as they're cleaning. This is just sort of the background noise, as
Sure.
you know, 7th graders are wont to do.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shannon Andreessen. I currently serve as the vice chair of the Hopkins School Board. I am in my 4th year on the school board, and I have a recent graduate from that is attending the U of M Twin Cities, and a 10th grader at the high school.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tanya Khan. I've lived for over 13 years in this district. Both my kids attended Hopkins schools, and now they are both at the University of Minnesota. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Jason Ross. I'm in my towards the end of my 2nd year of my 1st term, and I've been in Hopkins School District now for the past 10 years. I guess I don't know what else to tell you, but yeah, thank you for listening, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. So we'll move into our open agenda portion. This is one of 2 times during our school board meeting when we hear public comment. There are various options for giving public comment. You can comment on items that are on the agenda or items that are off the agenda. The on the agenda public comment time happens now at the beginning of the meeting. Off the agenda items, that time happens at the end. You have the option of leaving a voicemail to be played publicly during the school board meeting, and there are instructions for how to do that in the board packet. Or you can come attend the meeting in person, fill out a public comment card, hand it to the chair before the meeting begins, and we'll invite you up to the table during the appropriate time. We did not receive any voicemails this evening, nor did we receive any public comment cards. So we'll move into our reports section, and we are so lucky to have student board representatives with us this evening. We're going to get a report later on in the meeting about our student board representative program and how that's been evolving. But first, we want to hear from our student board reps themselves, so I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Samia Urmia, and I'm the junior representative. On May 15th of this month, GSA went on a field trip to the Minneapolis Convention Center, and from what I was told, they did some science-related things. And Student Council also went on a field trip, and it was to a game show studio, and it was to build their relationship and bond with the underclassmen that recently got elected. The play Chicago first performance was actually 2 weeks ago, but I didn't see it until last week. And honestly, it was really marvelous. You could tell that the crew put a lot of effort into it, from the background to memorizing all the lyrics to harmonizing and getting along with each other. Like, it was overall just like really good, and I enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to the next play. For sports, the girls' swim team has made it to state with two of our scholars, Harper and Ada, making it to state, and Annabelle, Cassie, and Addie for making it to the top 25, so congratulations to all those wonderful, talented girls. The boys' basketball team has had their first game, or will have their first game on Thursday at 7 p.m. at the high school. And Hopkins Park's girls' hockey team has a game actually starting at 7 p.m. versus Chaska, so we wish them the best of luck. Finally, the dance team has had their competition, 2 so far, 1 for jazz and 1 for high kick. And and a quick highlight to this club called Girls Taking Action, which is a club created to motivate girls to succeed in life in school. The club was made by an outside organization that came to our school to help empower girls. Girls Taking Action starts the club with all the girls saying an affirmation on how valuable and important they are. And then they have different things throughout the meeting, like a guest speaker coming in to talk to them. Sometimes they plan projects that would help them give back to the community. And most of all, the club taught all the girls to self-love. If anyone would like to participate or check it out, the club meets every Tuesday during Girls Connect. Alongside is Boys of Hope, which is for boys, and I'm not sure if it's similar to Girls Taking Action or not, because I have not been to one of the meetings, but I know that it was made by the same organization too, and they both come to the school. So yeah, thank you.
Fantastic, thank you.
Hi, I'm Praise Akinyele. I'm a junior, and recently we had class meeting awards issued. They were awarded to staff and students as a way to bring more positive culture to our school and reward people for their excellent behavior. For our basketball season, our girls actually have a game tonight right now against De La Salle. Hopefully they do well. Our math league had their second meet of the year yesterday. And some highlights from the exploration of the medical and health fields class is that they recently took a field trip to a biomedical engineering facility in Maple Grove, and they toured their research labs and learned about how cardiovascular technology is developed. They also had guest speakers visit them related to the fields of registered nursing and neuromusculoskeletal medicine. In robotics, our teams will be having their mini trial competition coming up this weekend. They have been working very hard to come up with their designs, and then in teams built 2 different robot models. Okay. Our orchestra has a concert this Thursday, and our band has a concert on December 11th. Our choir has a concert on December 19th, and they will all be taking place in the auditorium. And then lastly, our winter carnival is happening on December 6th, and there will be club booths for clubs to come and advertise their clubs and have games and stuff. And then after that, there will be movies.
Excellent, thank you so much. Any questions or comments for our student board reps? We really appreciate you coming out on this chilly night to spend it here with us at the board table. Thank you. So we'll next move into our approval of the agenda. So I would look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next, I would look for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next, we'll move on to our treasurer's report with Treasurer Adams.
Thank you. Chair Westmoreland. Expenses of note this time include $8,000 for 23 licenses for Smartsheet, which is a project management software tool, $9,059 for Avid memberships. If people aren't familiar with Avid, it stands for Achievement via Individual Determination, and the council prospective college attendees on developing good learning skills and study skills in time for college. Then there's a check written for $20,000 to the Sena Foundation for 3 mentors to mentor some of our students this year. $9,700 to various booster clubs for commissions while working at concession stands. And we had a conversation about that last time. That may be the last check we write for commissions to booster clubs, but you can see it's a very lucrative opportunity for booster clubs. $32,000 to Blake School for learning materials, as we are required by state law to provide learning materials to private schools in our district. $224,550 for Chromebooks. I don't know how many Chromebooks that buys, but it's probably more likely a refresh of our current Chromebook installations. $500 for a presenter on making traditional native moccasins, which sounds intriguing to me. And $1,230 for a first grade field trip to Dean's Pumpkin Patch. I imagine that took place sometime in October. But sounds like a fun field trip for kids to take. With that, I move that we approve total disbursements in the amount of $1,538,072.89 for the period of November 8, 2023 through November 21st, 2023.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the treasurer's report. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. We'll move into new business now. Our first agenda item is our policies and first read. We'll invite Assistant Superintendent Lightfoot to the table, and I'll turn it over to Vice Chair Andreessen, who is the chair of our monitoring committee.
Thank you, Chair Westmoreland. Wanted to give you a little bit of background on the 2 policies that we have before us in first read this evening. The first is the public relations policy. As some of you will remember, we had an equity audit, and there was a section on our policies, and this was one of the ones that they flagged that could use some tweaking to be more equitable and more intentional in equity language. So you'll see those edits there that were recommended by the auditors. And then the second is our mental health policy, which you will all remember was recommended by one of our student board representatives as he was serving on our policy committee. It was recommended by students that we have a mental health policy, wellness, well-being policy. And so we spent the summer working with staff who generously gave of their time over the summer to really craft, I think, a very robust policy that hopefully meets student needs in this area. And with that, I will turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Lightfoot. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, all. Good to be with you. As was mentioned, we have both this evening. We'll probably start with the public relations policy. Any comments, questions regarding the proposed changes to that at this time?
I have a couple of questions, or at least one to begin with. This policy, when I look at it, looks a bit different than the typical layout in which we see policies. So was this brand new, or is this added on to another policy? Because you had mentioned changes, Vice Chair, and all of this that's presented to us, none of it has any strike through or any.
Oh, it does on mine. Sorry if you have a different.
When I click on it straight out of what's linked, I get like a docx.
So
With no changes and still kind of.
if I may, just to answer your question, this is quite an old policy, actually. I think it has not been reviewed in almost a decade. So it's quite old and very high level, I think, because of that. And it needed updating anyway because we are not, communications have changed a lot since this was written. And so the changes specifically that were recommended or that we're recommending should be changed is in the number 1 bullet. Keep all identified. We are recommending that the word stakeholders be changed to community members informed in a timely and accurate way. The 4th bullet, we are changing the word cooperate to collaborate with the news media. And then number 7 was added, the last one, to read, and this wording is largely directly from the equity audit, diversification of messages and engagement for culture and language shall occur. And those are all the changes.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, even if I exit it and enter back in via the linked board pack edit.
I wonder if it's an iPad formatting situation, but Katie, yours has strike-throughs? Huh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Chair Westmoreland.
Yes.
This doesn't have any indication of when this was passed and when it's been modified in the past. Do you know when it was initially?
Let me go to,
Pull it up on
I'm pulling it up on the website.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't have a number either, apparently, huh?
Yeah, it's in a different format than is usual, as Director Hartland pointed out.
While you're pulling that up, I did have a question. So are there any statutory requirements that go along with this policy?
No, it's local.
Excellent.
The number is, the number is 957. And it was adopted in 1990. And,
Wow.
I misspoke, and revised in 2015. So not quite a decade.
All right. Nick, does MSBA offer any, they don't have a corresponding recommended policy?
No, it's
Okay.
just been a local policy that we've worked with the board on. Any of those that are above the 50s are policies that Hopkins has chosen to have.
All right.
Did Marcom staff, marketing and communications staff have a chance to review this?
We did.
Great. Excellent. I support the fact that it's a very high-level policy. I certainly support the changes, support the fact that it's very high level because, as you mentioned, not only modes of communication change, but our community's preferences in terms of communication changes quite rapidly. And so I think embedded within that number 7, diversification of messages, is this idea that we are striving to constantly be responsive to what our community is asking of us in terms of communication. So I support these changes.
Any other questions? Great.
All right. Second policy is the mental health, mental wellness policy that we have. We, as we mentioned before in a previous workshop, spent time with our mental health, mental wellness staff in co-constructing this and have developed it and have put it together. We have taken it through that construction process, have brought it forward to you in the workshop space. Now here, have it for you in first read. We did have legal counsel, outside legal counsel, also review and give feedback into what you see here as the first draft. As part of the next steps after the first draft, through part of our discussion, we did look to have this go out to the community as well. So we are set tomorrow after this conversation here to notify the community of this policy, seek input and feedback as we have on others from community feedback forms, and then have a date set for the 6th of December that we will be looking in the afternoon as we have before to hold an open forum for those that would like to hear any of the community questions that came in, and then potentially offer any other questions or comments that would be helpful. We will be recording that session, and then additionally, for those that aren't able to attend, taking additional feedback from the community as well. So just to give a little precursor to this. And then, of course, if there are any questions, other concerns, pieces of information that would be helpful, we're here to address those as well.
And what we're looking for on this particular policy is similar to ones that we've crafted in the past, where we're bringing it to the board for a first read, gathering your feedback, and then seeking community input. And then if there are any changes, we will make those in between the first read and the second read. That will be scheduled for our December 12th board meeting.
Vice Chair Andreessen,
Yes.
how is the public going to be notified of the discussion about this policy?
We have set to do notification tomorrow. We have a message drafted letting them know of the form so that we can get that out there and get that ready.
Okay. Like via email, or how is it going to be?
We can do multiple. We have the opportunity through buildings. Most building communications go out on Thursdays and Friday through
Okay.
principal newsletters. Those opportunities, if we feel that we want to push it out via a notification, we can use our notification to push it out to the community as well. There are multiple sets of ways that we can let people know that we have this as an opportunity or option for comment.
Okay, thank you.
I was really happy to see the inclusion of specific language regarding our staff.
Yeah.
So obviously, very important to have a policy that focuses on student mental health. And as is explicitly stated in our policy, staff mental health and wellness it directly impacts the quality of the student experience. Also, our staff as whole humans deserve that support within our system and within our community. And so appreciate it there and in the regulations. I had one sort of suggestion to float, and it has to do with some of the language in the regulations, and now I'm playing the scrolling game and trying to find it again. Around staff training and support. So section B, so it's section 6, subsection B. Training programs will include student experiences and direct input to generate content and must be trauma informed. Excellent inclusion, and culturally competent. Wondering if we might want to use a word like culturally sustaining or validating, that's stronger and really gets to this point that our students' cultures should be honored and reinforced through any sort of mental health structure that we have in place. Their personal identities are a core part of that.
Absolutely.
Would a word, did you say affirming, culturally affirming?
Yeah, sustaining or validating.
I do know that we got a lot of staff input on this, which I was very thankful for, and I think there's a understanding around what culturally competent means. I wonder if we wouldn't quite know what the intention was behind that.
That's a good
those
point.
Words. But I hear what you're saying, so I'm wondering if there's another.
Could it even be an awareness, right? Because I hear both sides. The thought that being, like, it feels like it'd be a heavy lift for all teachers to be fully, we have so many cultures, right? But to have that awareness or sensitivity or strengthening it, yet not making it feel like too much of a burden for our staff.
Relevant. Okay, we'll stop wordsmithing.
Yeah, I mean,
Just highlight that and know that it needs work.
and then it also shows up in a different section in section 3C. So I guess, yeah, I was looking, to strengthen it. But if cultural competence is the language that we're using throughout the district, still to talk about, being culturally responsive, understanding that students bring different cultural experiences into the classroom. Those experiences also shape students' identity and sense of self and mental health. If that's the terminology that we're using, I would say keep it. I know that culturally sustaining and validating is terminology that's being used in education equity spaces. But if that hasn't become part of the language that we're using here in Hopkins, then I understand why we would want to keep it. And again, I don't, I think it works well as is, but maybe just keeping that in mind if we start to evolve our language and thinking about that to sustaining and validating, that we might look at changing that eventually.
I like that.
Thank you. We can easily bring that back, have that reviewed, and see if there is any suggestion for second read.
I have a comment and a question as well. The comment is that I was pleased to see the scope of this and how it specifically states that this policy covers actions that take place in the school, on school property, at school-sponsored functions, on school buses, at bus stops, et cetera, and also that it applies to our entire school community, and that includes not only our staff and students, but our parents, our guardians, and our volunteers. And I think that that is a really community-focused way to look at this, and I think that at least many of our community members have school safety and mental health on their minds and will appreciate that inclusion. And then my almost question, I'm not entirely sure if this is a policy-based fix, but I was especially interested in section 4, which is early intervention and response, and wonder if it makes any sense to include any specifics about either establishing or publishing a way for people to anonymously report. I know that such ways exist. I can't say that I personally know what to do if I had any mental health concerns myself, or a student about which I had mental health concerns or any safety-related concerns. And again, possibly that's not specifically policy, but seems so vital, especially we just talked about varying and evolving methods of communication. It seems timely, or at least a question worth asking.
So the idea would be were you thinking a district level contact person or a general, this is the person at your child's school site who you should try and get in contact with?
Possibly. That's at least an idea. I think that this is such a focus, and this is a really fantastic and much needed policy. And I am trying to formulate some very specific thoughts about that early intervention and kind of how important it feels, especially in regards to at least a few things that have been on the news about students' mental health and about social media posts and how that relates to students' mental health and safety. And I'm wondering if there is room, or if possibly it's at this point it's for future consideration, even if that becomes part of our mental health and school safety plan, is that way that everyone knows where to direct concerns.
Yeah, that was a big part of our conversation, was where does this policy stop? And then when does it go over to our crisis
Sure.
safety? Very robust and quite detailed response. And I think that we really teased that out, because you're looking at a very pared down version of what we started with. And I think you're getting to the crux of where we kind of landed on, this is our mental health and wellness policy. And then when we get into more of those specific, like, crisis type areas, that's where there's more of that detailed information. But I also get your point of, we do believe that early identification and intervention is important, which is why we put in that those things will be implemented to identify students who will be at risk. So I think that that's where this policy is doing its work, and then we rely on our amazing administration to flesh out those details.
I think the other element to add a little to that as well that we had conversations about is that those protocols look different in an elementary or pre-K setting than they might at a high school. And so we struggled with, how detailed do we include all of that, or do we keep the higher level identification, but know that it is differentiated depending on different programming and different levels throughout our system, as for adults as well as our young pre-K and other students that we serve as well.
And I think I heard distinctly from staff more than once that they are very invested in the ways in which they do this work at their sites, because it's working for their students. And we definitely want to honor that, because frankly, this policy is playing catch up to our amazing staff.
Well, I know this one in particular took a lot of work. So I want to recognize that, the work that the monitoring committee put in and all of our staff who gave input. And I think it's a wonderful policy to take to the community for additional input, and looking forward to taking a look at it in second read. So typically our process is that policies in second read go on the consent agenda. If there are substantial changes, might we consider putting this under new business to just take another look at it together?
Could we put it under old business?
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. Put it as a live agenda item. That's what I should have said.
Yes,
Ancient business. No,
that's
yeah.
a good way forward.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Great.
Great. Anything else? So I would look for a motion that the board approve the above policies in first read and direct the administration to prepare the policies with suggested revisions for approval in second read at the next meeting.
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the policies in first read. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Nay. Motion carries. Excellent. Thank you, Assistant
Thank you.
Superintendent Lightfoot. We'll move on to our Student Board Representative Program update, and I will turn it over to Directors Kahn and Hartland.
And I'm so sorry, I didn't clarify this earlier. I should have done that. But I'm just going to be leading this today. And I should have, so sorry, Director Hartland, I should have looked over our board report agenda today and fixed that, sorry. Anyways, moving forward, there's this group of phenomenal students has really impressed me through the years that I have been working on the school board. It has been such an honor to be part of this group of young, bright, innovative students who just go out of their way to go above and beyond. So it's not just schoolwork they're involved in various leadership roles in our community and outside of our school community. They are super achievers who really want to perform well in their academics, be leaders at school, be leaders even in the boardroom. I just can't, I can't compliment these students more. I'm so proud of them. And it's been an honor to be be a liaison for this team of great students. So thank you all for, being amazing. And I wanted to start with an introduction for our newest member on our Student Board Representative Program. This is Praise, and you all know her, of course, because she introduced herself already. Praise has, been really impressive outside of school. She helps run the Help Occupation Club. She has been part of a program called Black, Bold, and Brilliant. This internship that she was part of invited younger children to be inspired by Black history. She has been part of the Malcolm X Little Leaders Are Readers program. And what inspired Praise to be part of our student rep program was Oscar Wolf and his phenomenal advocacy, which we've all witnessed and been very impressed by. And Praise not only likes to be part of our student board rep community, but she has also joined the robotics team and loves being part of that. She also, for her future, this is pretty amazing. In the future, she wants to be part of the medical field and also do something with the engineering field as well. So welcome, Praise. I am so proud to have you be part of this group of amazing people. Next, I'd like to talk about Grace Riley. Grace Riley was inspired to be a student board representative because she felt it was a good way to be involved as a voice for students, especially during COVID. She also has a job outside of school. And she has been highly involved with our student board representative Instagram page. So please join everyone because Grace has done some great work on our Instagram page. She works in partnership with Student Council to create, she has worked in partnership with our Student Council to create our club fair. And as a senior, she's already applied for early admission and has several acceptances. And she wants to, in the future, she wants to possibly have a degree in business or HR. Samia has always had a passion for leadership. Her role was to help represent her peers, and also she loves working with adults. This year, she is part of the Legislative Action Committee and Schools and Communities in Partnership. She likes being part of the lawmaking aspect of the Legislative Action Coalition. She loves how SKIP cares about our communities and loves the community outreach aspect of SKIP. She also has family who will be entering Hopkins schools and wants to inspire them to take on leadership roles. Her future plans are that she wants to partner with admin to provide solutions to certain issues. She was part of the Leadership Summit, focusing on social connections with the mayor of Hopkins and Minnetonka and the sheriff of Hennepin County. So amazing. Last but not least, I'd like to mention, talk about Elif Ozturk. Elif Ozturk is another one of our dynamic student board representatives who has really advocated for students who particularly were having trouble getting access to sanitary products. So Elif went outside of our school district and worked as a team with various Minnesota public schools just across the state. It was commendable how she understood and empathized with youth who could not afford sanitary products. Most students in high school are more focused on themselves, their schoolwork, and various extracurricular activities outside of school, but Elif saw people with needs around her, and she rallied together with lawmakers and students from various parts of Minnesota and decided to find a way to make sure that period products would be free and available for students across the state. And the Minnesota Senate and House of Representatives passed a bill on May 17th, 2023, which required schools to provide free sanitary products to students grades 4 through 12. Elif's hard work in this aspect really paid off. She also has a passion for gender equity, and this has led her to become an intern for the Women's Human Rights Program and the International Justice Program, which she was part of in the summer of 2023. Recently, she was part of the, she was part of the 2-week session in Geneva, which she presented a report on the horrific child executions in South Sudan before the 52nd session of the UN Human Rights Council and the UN Human Rights Committee. She went on to meet with the UN Working Group to discuss the worldwide issue of menstrual inequity and how that negatively impacts women's lives. So, for the future, I think all of our student board representatives will be making headlines across the nation, maybe across the world, like Elif has. But yeah, I'm so proud to be part of this group of students. So keep on doing what you're doing. I'm sure you'll surpass us by leaps and miles. And that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Director Khan, thank you for all your work on the Student Board Representative Program. You've served as liaison for 2 years now?
Yeah.
Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah, and during that time, our Student Board Representative Program has really evolved. I want to thank Director Peterson for the work that she did with me on that to increase the number of student board reps, first of all, and change the structure so that our student board reps can serve on committees, which is where a lot of really meaningful work happens. And then Director Khan has been wonderful at supporting and coaching and recruiting students to be part of the program, making sure that you have the resources you need to do your role effectively, how you want to do it, and just really, really grateful for all of the work that you put in. And Director Hartland will be continuing that excellent work, continuing to bring student voice to the table. And something that I've really appreciated, especially over the past few years, is the way that we've been able to talk about really uncomfortable and difficult things together at the board table, and that's because of your courage as student board reps. So let's keep doing it. Whenever I talk with board members from other districts about our student board representative program, they're really interested in it, the structure of it. And so you are making change across the state of Minnesota by being part of this. So thank you. Thank you for your leadership.
Chair Westmoreland.
Yes.
I'd just like to note that Hopkins was one of the first school boards in the state to have student board reps. And I think it's been 25 years now that we've had student board reps. And it just amazes me that other school boards across the state are just now dipping their toes into school board representation of students. So it's a great tradition, and I'm glad that you two can be a part of it. I was just thinking the other day about all the great school board reps that have served on our school board since I've been on the board, and there's been some really terrific ones. Not to diminish your participation, you'll get a chance to prove you're, equally as good. So.
Well, absolutely, and our student board reps their input has led to very real policy change.
Yeah.
And calendar equity and things that have changed the district in really substantive ways. So grateful for that. Any other questions or comments on this item? So this was an update and discussion only, so no action needed. So we'll move on to our Hopkins Education Association calendar proposal. I'll invite Assistant Superintendent Lightfoot to the table to go over that with us.
Good evening.
Good evening again.
Little moment of deja vu. I hope you experienced that a little bit with the calendar. As we did have the opportunity to go through it with you originally in the workshop, to give you a little bit of background. And then as we indicated there, that the next step in the process as we work to gather input is to look at the Hopkins Education Association and their input as well. As mentioned, I am bringing that back to you as well, so that you can see some of those additional items for consideration that are part of the additional sets of information that we take a look at as we come forward to you at our next board session for the second read and final approval. So as part of our process, we want to make sure that we gather additional sets of information and consideration. Part of the work that is ongoing with this, I think, are related to two factors in that what we're trying to look at, and hopefully as you saw the set of information in front of you this evening, we know those start dates and end dates. Most of the calendar framework is pretty well set in what you see in front of you. We're now working through some of the more, what I would say are deeper level sets of details as they relate to structures such as conferencing and structures that are built into the calendar also around professional development. As a reminder, and thanks to our IDL staff for the work that they are doing and looking at the calendar as well. Part of the work that we have in front of us as we think about the 24-25 school year and as well the 25-26 school year is related to the READ Act and the training that comes along with that related to literacy. So we know that as part of the upcoming calendars, we need to see professional development as part of that built-in process so that we can make sure that we are meeting the obligations that we have to do the training that is associated with the READ Act, as well as the other sets of information that are continually in front of us as a district as well. So part of that work is still through the process of looking at where we are placing that and how we are placing that so that we can be mindful of those breaks and taking into consideration what that also looks like. So some of those fine factors are being built in, and we're coming through with some of that as we sit down together and talk through where some of those might be best placed. But overall, what you see here in front of you in this second set of documents is really the continued structure of start times and end times within the 24-25 calendar, with most of the changes being really around teacher days. Some of the changes as they relate to conferences are still also being fleshed out, most specifically at the middle level and a little bit at the elementary. So that's the general context of what's here. Tonight, this is a discussion element for any additional insights or comments, questions that you have related to the work that's ongoing, so that we can take any additional insight or comment back as we continue to work on finalizing what we would bring in front of you for next board session.
Thank you.
I just had one question. So last time, I think we were talking about a calendar, a previous calendar. There was an intention behind making less one-day breaks and putting them more joined together, and that was specifically an ask from, I believe, from staff. And is that, do they feel that this calendar reflects that intention of keeping those kind of one-offs as few as possible?
Yes. You will note that one or two were placed in. I think that's still part of the ongoing conversation, knowing that one of the parameters that we have heard from the community are uninterrupted weeks are really more of the ideal, as many as we can get. So trying to balance that with any impacts that it might have where interrupted weeks follow interrupted weeks. And I know that those are some of the sets of difficulty and some of the pieces that were proposed here that we still have to look at. Are there some additional options that might work? So we are still in process with that in a couple spaces as it relates to where conferences fall specifically. So we're still working on a couple of those, knowing that that's one of the parameters that we do try to work toward are the lowest number of interrupted weeks and continual weeks, as well as much another target goal is for as many days as we can get to serve our families in the community and balance that out with our professional development needs as well.
Thank you.
Chair.
Yes.
Nick, I was a little surprised to see that the HEA is proposing that we have a workshop before the last free weekend of summer next year. And would they rather have a free day in June, an extra free day in June, or what was their rationale for moving a workshop day to the Friday before the weekend?
Some of those are just placements where sometimes ending the school year may have some additional context of looking at some opportunities where they fall. So, for example, one of the things that they were looking at was the start of the workshop week that we did this year. If you'll see, one of the changes was for August 23rd with that workshop. And the idea of the opportunity being more advantageous at the start of the school year on the 23rd, giving an additional opportunity for them to implement what any professional development would be on the 23rd, so that it wouldn't be at the end of a year where there's a larger summer break without as much opportunity for direct implementation.
Was the 23rd this year on a Friday? I can't recall. That's what surprised me, is that they chose to do it on.
Yeah. Well, this year we
Friday.
did. We had 2 days prior to workshop week that we started with.
Okay,
So that we looked at some training opportunities that could be done related to the transition.
okay. Oh, gotcha. All right, well, I mean, they can have their workshops whenever they want, as far as I'm concerned, but if they want to do it on a Friday before the weekend, God bless them.
That's how we teachers are, Steve. Nick, could you talk a bit about grading days and kind of how many grading days we've had built into the calendar in the past, what that conversation has looked like this year?
Sure. When we've looked at the days for kind of the grading days, those really had their origin at the high school when we were looking at the term transitions. So when we were thinking of the term ending and much of the work happening at the high school with ending of courses at the same time that they were preparing for the start of another. So it really was to aid in that transition and preparation as it really was moving from a set of students into term 1, for example, and then a set of students moving into term 2, often for many instructors even changing multiple courses. So that level of transition was one to consider as we were thinking through and wanting to make sure that we set those up with the proper amount of time for grading and preparation. So that was the original context. When we did have some at the middle level, we utilized those grading days when we were alternating terms at the middle level. Now the middle level is on an alternating day schedule, so we are not seeing as much of the term transition as we have within. And so part of that is consideration of how that time is used and what that time is used for. The other element that's a little different is that the conferencing schedule, as you'll note in the schedule, does look different at the high school because there are conferences allowed for each term. So you do see that built in, and that looks a little bit different at the middle level as well, where you don't see that factored in as much just because the need is a little bit different in the way that it's built into the actual calendaring. And then, of course, the elementary has its set of conferences in that 2-day fashion so that instructors can meet with individuals for a longer period of time, and whether those are student-led or instructor-informed, gives a detailed opportunity to go more in-depth to the experience that's related to the individual student at that grade level.
Thank you, that's helpful. So wondering about conference structure then at the middle school. I'm bringing my lived experience as a parent to the table here, that the wait times at West were pretty long. Totally worth the wait. My students' teachers are amazing, and I really enjoyed interacting with them. But I'm thinking about especially parents and caregivers who work multiple jobs and have a really short sliver of time to come and participate in that, and if there's been any conversation around perhaps shifting that conference schedule a bit to open up a bit more time.
Yeah, that is on the table. We have reached out to Principal Mate and Principal Remosele to make sure that we can review with them to make sure that the conferencing structures are meeting needs, especially as we had that lived experience in November at the middle level, and wanting to make sure that we've captured appropriately what they're planning for, and if there is any need for redesign, that we can build that up front as soon as we can within the calendaring process. So that is also an ongoing point of additional information that we're working on.
Excellent.
I'm sure I have a question. I did flip through, so there's quite a bit more tabs on this spreadsheet than in the first time that we saw it. Can I ask what PLC stands for in the PLC calendar?
The PLC calendar is really the professional learning community for our instructors and the utilization of really that professional learning time that they have with one another with some specific structures.
So not highly pertinent to the community at large. I was just curious what that acronym stand for. And then I noticed there's no changes planned to school start times. We found a kind of a sweet spot where we are, and that will continue into next
No,
year.
it's an excellent question, and the calendaring itself assumes the start time that we have for purposes of really the calculation of the instructional hours that are required by statute. And so for the purpose of modeling, we've kept them the same. If they are tweaked or if they are modified through any further conversations regarding budget or whatever might impact transportation, the part that is really helpful about the way that we've set up the modeling is that it can be responsive and agile to whatever those changes are so that we can make sure that we're meeting those state obligations.
Okay, so it's not completely off the table. It's
Right.
not decided here necessarily in that calendar. Okay, and then my final question was, I did not see a specific designation by the HEA, nothing talking specifically about digital learning days at the high school, but the HEA is on board with our current thinking about digital learning days, and we're
Yeah.
free to continue
Yep.
to schedule those.
Very much so. And those, we haven't gone into each individual site where there may be some specific needs on specific days. So for example, even right now, they're working through ACT and MCA scheduling that may impact individual days in a certain way, where that schedule might be impacted for that day. But those are ongoing conversations as well. We just kind of tried to stick with the overall experiences of conference structures for families and planning. And our goal would be as soon as sites would know if they do have any of that additional information that they can provide, that it be provided as soon as possible.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I'm glad that the HEA is pleased with how that's been handled, and I think that's all.
This is a high-level comment, just based on feedback from community members, parents, especially parents of young children and middle school students, that days off are hard. And they understand, as a parent, I understand, and as a teacher, I understand that we need to build in time for professional development. We certainly need time to give our staff adequate time to grade and prepare for conferences. And it's also a hardship on families when they need to find childcare and think through all of the dynamics of having kids home alone on those days. So I know this is something that's top of mind when you're in negotiations, but wanted to just reinforce that again because it hadn't come up in this particular conversation.
Thank you.
So no action needed tonight. In terms of process, this will come back before us December?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep. It should be set for December 12th.
12th. Excellent. Any other questions or comments for Assistant Superintendent Lightfoot? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So our next agenda item is a resolution calling for executive session. Per state statute, did I miss something?
Oh, I was just going to say maybe you want to stay at the table, or?
Oh, in case there are any questions about the resolution. So our next agenda item is resolution calling for executive session. So per state statute, one of the reasons that a school board can close a meeting is to talk about ongoing labor negotiations. So the resolution in the board packet reads as follows. It is hereby resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 270, Hopkins, Minnesota, meet in executive session to discuss the HEA labor negotiations for the 23-24 and 24-25 school year, and that the meeting be held in person and commence immediately following the adjournment of this regular meeting. Further, that it be noted that all board members, superintendent, and clerk were duly notified of intention to call this executive session. So that is the resolution that we will be voting on. As with all resolutions, we will do a roll call vote. So we will call Clerk Ross into action, and wondering if there are any questions about that from the board before I look for a motion.
So moved.
All right, I have a motion to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Any discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Ross.
Chair Westmoreland,
Aye.
Treasurer Adams,
Aye.
Vice Chair Andreessen,
Aye.
Director Peterson,
Aye.
Director Hartland,
Aye.
Director Khan,
Aye.
Director Ross. Aye.
Thank you, Clerk Ross. We have 7 ayes, 0 nays. Motion carries. Next, we'll move into our board member reports. Steve, I just got a little bit sad. This is the second to the last, Director Adams.
Yeah.
Board member report.
Well, and unfortunately, I've got nothing to report.
What is happening? Is this like the senior
only-
slide? What's going on?
The only school board, school-related thing I have to report is one LAC meeting that we had prior to Thanksgiving, so that's it.
Oh, man. Now we've got like huge expectations.
I'll
for the
have a
12th.
lot for next time.
Okay, all right. Okay, excellent.
I'll just quickly mention that on Friday, it kicks off the MSBA Delegate Assembly. We got our guidebooks, and we'll be reviewing those to see what we will possibly be voting on to be included in the MSBA's platform for this legislative section, and oftentimes ongoing for years as we advocate for things for public education. So that will be happening on Friday and Saturday, and Director Ross will be joining me at that. So it should be interesting and hopefully lots of fun for people who are into that. And
Who isn't?
and then, as was mentioned earlier, when we were talking about the mental health policy, mental health and wellness policy, we will be holding a community conversation, I believe via Google Meet, on Wednesday, December 6th. And we hope that everyone in our community has a chance to review the policy, in particular our scholars, and will be there to join in the conversation and ask questions.
Thank you.
Chair Westmoreland.
Director Hartland.
I, due to the holiday, also don't have a very large board member report, but I did also want to call out the cast members of Chicago. They did a really fantastic job, and I've seen previous plays, but I was really blown away with how well put together this production was. So I guess not just cast members, direction, and all the pit and people behind the scenes too did a fantastic job. And also very excited about the robotics team. The elementary and middle school teams had a first expo on, I believe it was the 18th. And so some of them are excited about attending this coming Saturday's expo here as well. And then besides our LAC meeting that we had, I don't have anything further.
Thank you. Any other board reports? Going once? Okay. So we have no public comment for our second public comment section. So I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. I didn't even give you a chance to say nay because I know you.